Welcome and thank you, Sir Antonio Pappano and Beatrice Rana, for joining us today at the Artist Studio presented by Abu Dhabi Festival. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Ihab Darwish. I'm Emirati music composer and will be performing live this month at Abu Dhabi Festival in my world premiere. First of all, I would like to ask you the first question for both of you. How did you first come to music, and what made you choose the path of being a conductor and pianist? So if I can start with Sir Antonio.
My father was a singer and a voice teacher. There was a piano in the house. There were recordings. And so at a certain point, I was 6 years old, and all I was thinking about was playing with my friends and playing football. But my father decided that it was important that I take piano lessons. And so I started taking piano lessons. It was seemed like a very natural thing to do. But I was interested in music, but not particularly. I was sort of an ordinary young boy growing up in England. But then it started to work on me. It started to I started progressing at the piano. So then I started to be attracted to what music actually is, and it's very personal.
That's what you saw. And what was like your first piece? Do you remember the first piece you played?
Well, I mean, everybody plays dum da 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 dim dum dum dim da 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 dim dum dum, but and la da da dum da dee da da dee da, Beethoven Romance, and and the theme to Match of the Day, dun 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 dun, and these were things, and you know, when I was playing, starting to get good enough, I used to accompany my father in Neapolitan songs, O Sole Mio, and Torna Sorriento, and all these things, these very famous songs. So
amazing, yeah, amazing. You're very nice. And Beatrice,
I was born in a musician's family. Both my parents are pianists, and actually, I didn't think that playing the piano was something different from speaking or eating lunch. So I just started to play the piano. And I really realized that it was something different when I first attended the primary school, when I saw my friends that were not playing any instrument. So it was not a passion, it was not something that I wanted to do, it was just part of my daily life. And that's what I feel also now, it's just part of my nature. And so I don't remember, for example, the first pieces that I played. I remember very much the first big challenge that I did. That was the Mozart variations, A vous dirai-je maman, and that piece was the piece that I was bringing in competitions when I was 7 years old, and that I remember very well because it was the first time that I really had something challenging to play on stage, and I enjoyed it very much.
Me being an Emirati and having an Arab culture, it influenced my music. For you, like you have an Italian heritage, how far you think that the cultural identity affects music or influences music in a way?
Well, Italy is the land of opera, and being the son of a singer, of a tenor, and being now involved in opera for over 30 years now. I've been working in opera houses all over the place. I'm very influenced by the rhythm of the language, of the Italian language, and how it is transporting. It's a language that brings you, it pulls you somewhere. It has great direction. So of course that influences the way I conduct, but it's also very, Italians are very lyrical. They love the sound they love not only melody, beautiful melody, but they love how a beautiful melody actually sounds. So they have I think the importance of beauty and poetry in the music making is so important. Of course, what is more difficult for Italians is the structure and discipline, and to give this beauty and a framework. And so this is one of the great challenges of making music, is to try to create rigor and discipline, and yet to feel like you're flying and you're singing. So if you're at the piano, I would imagine that, you know, singing on the piano is so important. Singing if you're playing the violin, because that's our culture. The culture is about singing.
I would say also, in addition to that, we are a very dramatic country. We love drama, and probably that's why opera was born in Italy.
Of course, in Italy. That's the best part of it, the drama.
Yeah,
part.
but that's that's very important. That I realized myself that the drama, the possibility to create a story, it's one of the priorities of our culture, of our music tradition.
That's amazing, that's amazing, 100%. Another question for Sir Antonio. You've had an exceptional career, like leading prominent European institutions, from the Royal Opera House in London to Orchestra Santa Cecilia in Rome. How much do you think the role in developing the character of the orchestra, and what does it actually involve?
In terms of the Royal Opera House, working with an orchestra that is playing opera and ballet, many performances and so much preparation. We have to be incredibly flexible, going from Tchaikovsky one night to Mozart the next night, to Verdi, to Wagner, to Shostakovich, to Beethoven, to Bernstein, and also have the strength and stamina and character of sound to perform these pieces, which are very long. In opera, the pieces are long. Right. And the styles are so different. So I try to make sure that the orchestra feels like they're reinventing themselves with each different piece. This piece demands this. This piece demands that. You have to be, you know. And I guess I have to be honest with you, I think I do the same with my symphony orchestra. I try to create narrative, try to talk about story, but there's also a work about sound and how sound, once this is especially true on the piano, you hit a sound on the piano, bing, and the sound dies away slowly. But with an orchestra, you have the possibility of sustaining this sound and creating this onward moving, this beautiful continuity of tone. I mean, you can create that artificially on the piano, of course, and that's the big challenge of playing the piano. But in the orchestra, you have the opportunity to create. It can go on for like forever, you know. And but this needs work, because of course it needs work. It needs to be demanded by the conductor, but also, for instance, the strings have to really realize that when they change the bow, that the sound doesn't stop. When a wind player breathes, the sound might stop for an instant, but it mustn't stop. It mustn't park. You don't park the car. You keep the car moving. It's just an intake of breath to then continue. Transition. So yes, and so these things are so important to constantly remind the orchestra, remind yourself of the importance.
Beatrice, you've received many impressive accolades in your career to date, including being recognized as the Gramophone Young Artist of the Year award. What does like this mean to you?
Of course, it's a big honor, and I think it's a nice way to know that you are on the right way, because I am just at the beginning, and I'm also trying out different repertoire. I didn't decide what to focus on yet. I'm trying really to be open up to every kind of repertoire, and of course these kind of awards is very important, especially after such a big work as I did with the Goldberg. But I mean, it's really a long way ahead of me, and I hope. And it's a lot of work, but also a lot of inspiration from the others. And what I love in my life nowadays is that really so many collaborations and so many meetings with great musicians can inspire so much, and can really give me also a different perspective on the music making, which is like so important for me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Sir Antonio, if you can tell us some of the challenges being a conductor and being a conductor and artistic director at the same time, what challenges you have faced? And
one of the great challenges of being a conductor is the amount of laundry. You think I'm joking, I'm not. Yeah, there's a lot of sweating. There's a lot of learning of music and learning of complex music, because there's so many people playing, and to make sense. I think the most important thing the conductor has to know is how to learn. How do you learn? How do you look at a piece of music and learn it so that you can then communicate how to put it together? You know, so this is a constant challenge. It's a very great challenge to learn how to learn, to stay in good enough shape that you can physically manage, because some conducting is really physically demanding. I spoke before of the long operas, but it's not only those. Sometimes, you know, you get to the end of a symphony, and you know, you feel like, you know, my God, you could have a heart attack or something. As you get older, hopefully you learn when to save, when to let the musicians do it for you, do the work, and not you. I think one of the challenges today is that we have audiences which are perhaps not as educated as maybe in the past, for one reason or another. There's so many distractions in modern life, so much technology, so many competing institutions and realities. I think every musician who has a little power or a position to be able to talk to their audiences, explain, take away the mystique, take away the fear of classical music, and make people realize that actually classical music can be very exciting, especially live. You know, and if we're performing generously, if we're giving our all to the performance, and the public knows a little something about what they're hearing, I think that's so important. Today we cannot just simply say, well, I'm a musician, I've got an orchestra, I'm going to go do a concert, people will pay the tickets, they'll come. It's a little bit more complicated than that, I think. Now there needs to be this interview, for instance, that we're doing. We need to communicate, we need to show that we're actually flesh and blood human beings who have fears, challenges, that they're, you know, laundry and you know, and so it's but we must see it as an opportunity, that we have a chance to come closer to the public, so the public that knows a little something about what they're experiencing will stay with us. Keep people curious and satisfy that curiosity. Educate.
my last question will be, what is creativity? How do you define it? Does it come on the spot, or do you earn it? If you can tell me more about that.
As a conductor, I'm not a creative musician. I have to be honest. I'm not a composer. I'm a recreative musician. I composed a little bit when I was younger, and the idea of composing I find fascinating. That said, I do quite a lot of contemporary music, and there I feel most creative because I help, especially when I do a premiere, I help really bring to life something that doesn't exist yet, that has not been born yet. And in that sense, I feel very, very creative. Also, to find solutions for the new, for perhaps the experimental, perhaps the misjudged, or perhaps for an idea that just needs a little help to bring it, you know, that, and to do that, and doing new opera, new operas, new stories. That to me is extremely creative, and to be part of that process, and to have the guts to say, no, this is no good, cut it, let's get rid of that, or this works, this doesn't work, this is great, and to be involved in a process where everybody doesn't know until the first night. You know, it's an amazing experience.
Of course.
No, I agree with him, because we are not composers, so creativity is in a different sense. It's not creating something really from nothing, but it's what I enjoy very much in what I do is the creativity of sound, especially when I am in solo recital, when I really have the freedom and to create sound, and really with the hands. This is something that it's a very beautiful feeling, but also very tricky, because as you was saying before, music is about going towards something, and sometimes this creativity of sound can make myself very self-indulgent, and you know, you have the sense of beauty of the sound, but then it becomes by itself. So creativity is always has always to be balanced with something else. That's what I feel. But for sure, this is what we live for, a musician.
That's the job, yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly what...
Creative, the way you perform it, the way you put your emotions with it, the way you put the sound for it. It is creative in a sense for us, yes, of course, of course. Thank you very much for this amazing interview. We're really happy to have you here with us.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much.
See you, and then, yes, thank you very much. Thank you.